and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. Today is Sunday, July 29th, 2018. And tonight's topic, gold is jewelry and everything else is just trinkets. That will be the topic of tonight. We're going to discuss the correlation between gold and the dollar. Before we do that, let's cover some quick housekeeping. What happened during the day? Gold and silver markets have reopened as of a couple of hours ago, and they're flat. Gold is at $1,222.20, and silver is at $15.46. Moving over to the cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin slightly down over the last 24 hours at 81.66. Bitcoin Cash at 824. It's slightly up. Ethereum slightly down at 464, and Litecoin slightly down at 83.62. Okay, well, it's been a busy week for Smaulgld. We've put out a live stream every night, and we just put up Moronica on BitChute. That is not available on YouTube, so I'm going to give you the link for that one. Also, we just published the weekend review. That's why I was a couple of seconds late here. In case you missed it, top gold and silver stories for the week ended July 29th. That is now up also on the Smaulgld YouTube channel, so you can check that out. Also, we've got some requests for small mugs, Smaulgld smaller mugs. They are now available in the Smaulgld store. Smaulgld espresso mugs. We don't call them cups, we call them mugs because mugs are useful, and you should have your mug. I'm going to give you the link right now for Smaulgld's Moronica for those of you who are fans of that particular. For those who don't know what Smaulgld Moronica is, I take some of the most ridiculous stories of the week and I cover those in a short video. So here comes Smaulgld's Moronica. You don't want to watch it now, but you can check it out later. All right, and the Smaulgld espresso mug, if you want to check that out, it's a nice small looking mug. It is on special tonight. It's only about 10 bucks, which is a good price. That will come to you directly from the manufacturer. If you want to buy the Smaulgld Classic and Super Classic, you can order those directly from me. I do have a bunch of them to send out tomorrow. So tomorrow I'm going to the post office if you want to order your Smaulgld Classic and Smaulgld Super Classic mugs. They will be in the mail tomorrow. You get free shipping for your price, and also you get tracking, so you'll get them in a couple of days, and you just go to smaulgld.com and you can check them out. All right, so let's check out. I also just was waiting on a silver chart, which I did get from Nick Laird, but tonight I want to cover the correlation between gold and the dollar. And now that I've got my chart from Nick, I also want to check out the correlation between gold, silver, and the dollar. All right, so let me get rid of some of these windows here. It slows down our feed. You always hear gold is money, period. Gold is real money. And then you hear the botched line, gold is money and everything else is just credit. That supposedly was attributed to J.P. Morgan. He never said that. What he said was money is gold and nothing else. The point is the same, though, that gold had been for thousands of years the premier money, and it met all the characteristics of money, including a medium of exchange, store of value. It was fungible, it was divisible, even better than mugs. Gold was the premier money. Silver also was a premier money. Better for small transactions, not as good on the store of wealth. Historically, it never was, always considered the devil's metal, volatile. It was always something that Democrats wanted to include as a bimetallic standard because it was inflationary. Gold was always considered more stable. But then you hear all this, gold is the money of kings and silver the money of gentlemen. And barter is the money of peasants, debt is the money of slaves. You know, I listen to this and I say, well, copper is useful. Copper is the metal of pipes, and steel is the metal of bridges. Lead is the metal of bullets. Nickel is the metal of faucets. and gold is the metal of pumpers, and silver is the metal of pumpers. So I don't like to overhype the values of gold and silver, and I like to take a realistic view of them. I don't have gold derangement syndrome or silver derangement syndrome. I don't worship the BRICS and China and crushing the dollar and end of dollar hegemony and game changer and game over and dollar collapse and 2 + 2 = gold. All that nonsense that you get from the pumper channels constantly trying to insist that gold and silver have some mythical qualities and somehow China is tied to them, and that the United States dollar is what stands between you and gold and silver riches. And if you just read Sun Tzu, you will realize that gold is set to skyrocket once China has had enough and stands for delivery, and then we live in a golden age. Any event, I like to look at gold as what it is. And silver for what it is. They're both formally part of the financial systems. Silver was always under attack. Even when it was part of the financial system, they're always trying to boot it out. And they did finally boot it out of the financial system in the United States in the early 1960s. Kennedy worked towards getting rid of the silver certificates. He said that silver serves no useful function other than for its use in industry and for coinage. And he meant that. And he was trying to make sure that the United States wasn't stockpiling silver for the purpose of redeeming silver certificates. So they got rid of that, and they got rid of the silver coinage for people to use in 1965, and we haven't had it since. Central banks don't hold silver. So silver has been completely demonetized. Gold, they took out a currency in 1933. They took it out, but they didn't try to demonetize it. They just wanted it for themselves, and they used it to basically revalue it at $35 to devalue the dollar. So they took it from the people at $20.67 and gave it to themselves. And then by the Gold Act of 1934, they revalued it at $35. Nice little profit they made. But think of the difference between the gold confiscation of 1933 and the Silver Confiscation Act of 1934. The reason, if you recall from a prior video I did, that the United States government confiscated silver wasn't because they wanted to take it from the people. It was because they had a coin shortage and they needed the silver. They didn't call in your dimes, quarters, and half dollars and dollar coins. They called in your scrap silver so they can make coins out of it, and they paid you for it. The difference with the gold, when they wanted to take it away from you and not give it back to you. There was no gold coin shortage. They wanted all that gold for themselves. So you can see that the gold was valued much more. They were willing to give you back your silver in the form of coins so you can spend it. And then by 1965, they said, the heck with that. We're not giving you any of this silver. We're just going to convert the coins, the dimes, the quarters, the half dollars into clad cupro nickel, they call them, and we're just going to stamp on there 10 cents, 25 cents, and 50 cents, and you're not getting any more silver. All right, so what you've seen is that there was, and then since then, silver's gone. Silver's finished as a monetary metal. It's not pocket change anymore. There's no more silver certificates. The last silver certificate was redeemed in 1968, and the U.S. got rid of its strategic silver stockpile in the 80s. So, and that, even then when they had that was strategic silver. It wasn't necessarily for monetary value. Gold, on the other hand, stuck around even after 1933. Obviously, there were countries that still kept gold as a portion of reserves. They still do today. And then from 1944 to 1971, gold was at the center of the international monetary system under the Bretton Woods agreements, whereby the United States dollar would be backed by gold. So we weren't on a gold standard like they were in the 1880s, 90s, and early part of the 20th century, where each country basically tied their own currencies to units of gold, and gold went back and forth depending on whether you had a trade surplus. The way the Bretton Woods agreements was, it was a quasi-gold standard. They try to put everything behind the U.S. dollar. And since the United States was a massive exporter, they figured not a problem there. Big powerhouse. United States would retain its gold, and the dollar was as good as gold, because if you happened to have dollars and you wanted gold for it, you can bring them to the United States under the Bretton Woods Agreement. If you are a signatory to the Bretton Woods Agreement, central bank, you can bring it to the U.S. Treasury, those dollars, bring your warship, and the U.S. would load some gold in equivalent amounts at $35 an ounce to your country. Well, what happened was, first of all, they never raised the price of gold from 1934 to 1971, which is ridiculous because the price of gold obviously should have increased with the amount of trade. So they were running short on gold, and then the United States started running trade deficits and doing deficit spending. So that whole Bretton Woods system wasn't going to work. There wasn't enough gold. The United States was going to end up handing out all of its gold if things kept that way. So Nixon finally had to close the gold window, and then the world went off the gold standard. However, unlike silver, where once it was demonetized, that was the end of it, countries continue to hanker for the gold standard for a few years after that. They came up with the petrodollar agreements. We're not going to get into that right now. But countries today still hold as reserves pretty much every country on earth, every central bank other than Canada, which is strange. They don't hold any gold. But pretty much every country owns gold. And if they're part of the IMF, they had to deposit a certain amount of gold to join. And so gold is still part of the monetary system. However, the amount of gold that central banks hold, I think I saw, is like 20-25% of all the gold in the world. So they don't have all the gold in the world. And then also, central banks, central banks are buying gold. Central banks are buying gold hand over fist. That's not true. The only central banks that are buying gold are Russia, Kazakhstan, recently Turkey, not Central Bank of China. While China may be buying gold as a country, central bank is either not reporting it or not adding it. But for the most part, the central banks are not adding gold. They have agreements amongst themselves not to buy or sell gold. So the largest gold holding nations haven't added gold in a long time. And in fact, Britain fell out of the top gold holding nations about 20 years ago when they sold 60% of the gold. Switzerland moved out of the top 5 when it sold about 60% of their gold. And then Canada doesn't have any gold. And then France, Italy, Germany, United States, Netherlands, they haven't added any gold. India hasn't added any gold, even though the country has added a lot of gold. They may have repatriated gold, but that's not the same thing as adding gold. The countries that have added gold the last 20 years have been China. People's Bank of China did add gold. They did announce gold. They're number 6 now. Russian Central Bank. Kazakhstan, as I report now, is 15th in terms of gold holding nations, which is very high for a country with such a small GDP. But for the most part, central banks are not buying gold. However, they do hold it. Now, what people like to say about the price of gold, and you get this meme going around that, and I do follow this. I follow the price of gold in the different currencies, in dollars, and then I do a quarterly report. Well, I didn't do it last quarter, but I definitely do it every year. The gold price in the different currencies, and I track about 12 or so of those currencies, and you can see that because there's a variation in the prices, in the values of the fiat currencies, that there is a difference. So for example, the Turkish lira is a horrific currency, and if you hold gold, the gold price in lira has skyrocketed. Same with if you held gold in Venezuelan bolivars or whatever it is they issue, Argentine pesos, Brazilian reals. You definitely make out the gold price in those currencies goes higher. Now, when you look at it in terms of yen and euro and British pounds and dollars, the increases are not that significant. You can check it out at goldprice.org. They list the prices of gold, and they have a nice chart of all the different prices of gold in the various currencies. Now, what I wanted to do is take a look at the chart that you should see on your screen there. And again, like I did last night when we went through a bunch of charts that I couldn't show you, well, I do put on the Smaulgld site the next day a blog post, and I put a bunch of charts that you can look at your leisure. You can re-listen to. I repost this YouTube or BitChute, and you can look at it, and you can also look at the charts, listen to it, and look at the charts at the same time. But one of the things that people kind of insist on is that somehow there's an inverse relationship between gold and the dollar, and that somehow when the dollar is strong, that the gold is weak, and when gold is strong, it's because the dollar is weak, and people cheer that on. That's why they're always saying dollar collapse, game changer, multipolar world, China to crush the dollar, all that nonsense. It's because, and then they've decided they become cheerleaders for China just because they think China is the linchpin that'll help crush the dollar, because China's doing all these things. They got the BRICS, and they've had it with dollar hegemony. So all this talk about trying to crush the dollar is based on a desire to make gold go higher, because they have it in their minds that obviously if the dollar crashes, gold's going to go higher. That's somewhat true, and it's also, but there's not a direct correlation. There are times when the dollar can go up and the gold can go up with it. And what reminded me of that, and I have been saying this, but not in so many terms, is that for recent times, the investment demand for both gold and silver is dwarfed by the demand for gold and silver for jewelry, which means All right. Looks like it's working again now. I want to pick up where I left off. I gave a great explanation. I don't know how much of it you heard. Yeah, I was silenced for speaking out against game changers. We're in about 25 minutes. When did the sound go off? Don't tell me it went off 20 minutes ago, and I've been talking to myself. When can somebody tell me I can kind of piece together what I just said? Because I think it's quite interesting, the correlations. 5 to 10 minutes ago. Okay, did you hear me talking about why central banks are not buying gold at the moment? Someone just say yes or no. At 45 minutes. About 8 minutes ago, no sound. All right, well, let me try to recap what we were talking about. Did you guys see the chart? Did I start talking about the chart that you see on your screen? Because I can start there, because that's probably a good place to start. All right. Doesn't look like anyone's helping me out here. I'm going to have to go back. Only just. Okay. All right. And did you hear when I was talking about the difference between gold, why they took the gold from the people, and why they took the gold from the silver? Two different reasons. The reason they took the gold was because they wanted to have it, and the reason they took the silver was they wanted to make more coins from it. Did you hear that part? Maybe you're not hearing me now. Let's see. Yeah, it's still working. I don't know why it goes off like that. All right, well, let me just recap, and if you've heard it already, then you probably haven't heard too much. All right, so what I was saying was that there are a lot of people who claim that the dollar is tied to gold. And the rationale for that is that gold is money, period. And that gold is still part of the financial system. However, what I pointed out was that the financial portion of gold is no longer the biggest part of gold demand. Okay, so it was covering confiscation. I'll go from there all the time. Okay, so, and I cited the statistics from the gold demand numbers, in that currently jewelry demand for both gold and silver is twice the amount of demand for investment demand. And a lot of people say, so for example, in 2017, 2,200 tons of gold were required to meet jewelry demand, and only 1,028 tons for retail investment demand, and only 366 tons to meet central bank demand. So people say investment banks are buying gold. That is why I am buying gold, because investment banks are buying gold. Well, of that 366 tons, 224 of them were from Russia. So basically, central banks aren't buying gold. So 224 of the 336 tons are being bought by Russia. And the reason Russia's buying is because they're the number 3 producer of gold in the world, and they have a crappy currency. So why not buy gold from your domestic supply? I mean, they bought 67% of the gold. So the idea that central banks are buying gold is not true. And then I think I went through that the central banks themselves are not adding gold. That the United States, Germany, Italy, France, India, Netherlands, UK, Switzerland, they have not added gold in decades. Now, they still have gold as reserves, and I mentioned that Canada has sold all of their gold, that the Swiss National Bank sold 60% of their gold, and that England sold 60% of her gold as well. I also mentioned that the difference between silver and gold is that while no central banks hold silver, all central banks, other than maybe Canada, hold some gold, and all central banks that are part of the IMF had to deposit some gold as a marker to get into the IMF system. So gold is still part of the system, financial system, albeit it's not the largest part. The amount of money in nominal terms that's in gold is very small, but it's part of the system. Whereas silver, we had mentioned, was taken out of the U.S. monetary system, was taken out of the currency. They removed the silver certificates. The last one was sold and was redeemed in 1968. The U.S. sold a strategic stockpile of silver in 1982. And silver has been out of the financial system for decades. Gold still remains in the system. But even when you look at a country like Russia that's fifth in the world in gold holdings, the amount of gold that they hold is worth about $80 billion. However, it is still part of the system. And that's why there's some correlation between currencies and gold. But the connection isn't as strong as some might think. And so what people are saying is, and this is the reason they have this China worship, is they think that if the dollar goes down, then gold will go up. And China is going to crush the dollar. And therefore, China is my gold buddy. That's the whole end of dollar hegemony, multipolar world. That's where all that comes from. That's where the whole gold derangement syndrome comes from. And to a certain extent, the silver derangement syndrome, which makes you cheer on dollar collapse. And the United States, it's unsustainable, and they have too much debt, and China is going to crush the dollar. They are going to stand for delivery on COMEX, and they are going to institute social credit, but that is okay because we have gold, and China is my gold buddy. That's where all that comes from. That somehow if the dollar goes down, then hooray for gold. And China, for whatever reason, has been tasked by the gold community to crush the dollar and end dollar hegemony. Now, that's somewhat of a false hope because, again, as I mentioned, if you look at the charts, there are time periods when gold will go up even if the dollar doesn't decline. And there's periods of time where gold will go down, but the dollar is flat. So if you look at the chart, though, that you see on your screen from 2018, now here, in the last 6 months, is the argument for they're correlated. You see the dollar going up and gold going down. And you see almost from, I would say, the last year, there's almost a direct correlation. But there's other periods of time on this chart where there's not a direct correlation. You can see the dollar was pretty much flat from mid-2013 to 2014, and gold was going up and down and up and down, and the dollar wasn't doing anything. And then the dollar took off in 2015, and so did gold. You could see there's a period of time from 2015 for about 6 months, they both moved up together. So there's not a direct correlation, and with silver, it's not direct at all. With silver, you see many times silver just goes down. Silver will go down when the dollar goes up. Silver will go down when the dollar goes down. Silver will go down when the dollar stays the same. So silver doesn't even have the same monetary connection. And that's why when you see gold go higher, gold goes higher when, and there are clearly times gold goes higher when there is an issue with the currency, there's an issue with concern about debasement of the currency, and that's why you'll see in countries like Turkey, Argentina, Venezuela, Brazilian real, the price of gold in those currencies will skyrocket. And that's direct, but it's not just gold that's going higher against all those currencies. All goods and services are becoming more expensive because if the currency is debased, the value of what you're going to buy is going to be higher relative to the currency. So jewelry is more expensive too in Turkey now, gold jewelry. Books are going to be more expensive. Mugs are going to be more expensive in Turkey as their currency debases. But there is a connection, especially with gold, to currencies because gold is still part of the system. But again, it's not a significant part of the system. And as I mentioned, silver isn't part of that system whatsoever. So if you look at the charts, and I will put these charts up like I did today after our discussion on the JP Morgan and the COMEX silver. If you go to the Smaulgld site, I did put up the charts that we talked about. I'll put some charts up on the dollar index versus gold, the dollar index versus silver. As I mentioned, these charts come from Nick Laird. The gold charts are us. I've been working with Nick for a number of years. He produces thousands and thousands of charts, and I cherry pick the ones that I'm interested in, but there's plenty of other data to mine there in his charts. And I keep, as you know, my own charts on some of the, like the Central Bank of Russia, Kazakhstan, and so on. All right, I apologize. I don't know how much you missed or how much you saw, but let's take a look at some of the comments. I don't want to keep you too long. I do appreciate you sticking with me and letting me know. See, just so you know, when I do these live streams, I'm not looking purposely at the chat, and I'm also not looking at my streamer, and I can't tell when I've gone off, and I don't see when somebody tells me you're off. I got to come up with a way. I probably need have two screens. That's probably what I'm going to do, is set up 2 windows so I can check them out and see what's going on. All right, let's take a look at the comments here. So let's see. Mugs up. What's up, Mugsy? Kevin is here. I got you. I got the people who I mentioned who purchase mugs. I will send them out tomorrow. I have a big stack of them to go out. Mostly super classic, but some of the travel mugs as well. Seems either way they stole both over time. Canada is doomed, says Kevin. All right, Drunk Octopus. Do you think that converting some gold, silver from your retirement would be wise if the money system resets? Do you think it's possible? So you mean taking your retirement money and putting it into gold or silver? Well, I mean, that's just an investment decision. The idea of a reset, see, these ideas, what happened in 2008, I think, created in people the idea that big events are going to drive what happens. And big events do in history, they do reset things. But generally, big events are few and far between. And I think what a lot of people have done to try to make a name for themselves, always predicting big events. Gold back yuan, all these game changers. And they're wrong. And there's no guarantee. The thing about a reset, that's just because it's an echo chamber. Someone writes a book, someone talks about it, it becomes what everybody says, and everybody thinks there's going to be a reset. Or SDRs, or whatever. There's going to be a sovereign-sized gold buy in 92 days. No, there's not. I mean, might be, but most of this stuff is echo chamber, and then it becomes China is going to crush the dollar, China is going to stand for delivery, COMEX default. You get this kind of mentality where people start to believe it. JP Morgan has 750 million ounces of silver, and they know it's coming, and when the price is... No, well, maybe, but there's no probability in that other than someone repeats it a lot and everybody else repeats it. So that's what I get concerned when people are waiting for something to happen as if it's preordained. And then credit's going to freeze up and Deutsche Bank's going to collapse and the $1 trillion of derivatives, blah, blah, blah. You know, Deutsche Bank's been collapsing for you. You'll see. No, maybe it won't collapse. Maybe the COMEX won't default. I know the COMEX is not going to default. Not in the way that they think it is. It's not going to go out of business and China's going to crush the dollar. So this reset stuff is somewhat nonsense. This SDR is the global currency. Somewhat nonsense. Meaning it's just a projection or prediction with low probability, but people have it in their head that it's high probability and they're saving for the collapse. Because there was a collapse, and now everybody wants to be the guy who calls it. But, you know, things can just carry on. And now everyone's looking for black swans. I don't look at things that way, because you never know when these things are going to hit. And usually, as in life, the things that derail you are not the ones that you're planning on, because they wouldn't derail you if you'd planned on them. So I don't count on gold and silver. I think you should buy a mug. I'm going to give investment advice. You should buy Smaulgld mugs, because you can always, they're not going to go to zero, and they're not going to cost you a lot of money, and you can feel good about it. Anything else, I can't tell you what to do. All right, maybe those controlling the CBs are buying gold. See, this is the same thing. They convince you that the world thinks about gold the way they do. They're lying, and Sun Tzu says, and China is going to crush the dollar, as if everyone in China wakes up in the morning, thinks about how can they get gold, and that the whole world is like in this grand conspiracy not to tell everyone how much gold they have, and then they're going to roll it out into a stadium, as if countries don't have anything else better to do other than banana republics to roll their gold out into a stadium. I mean, this is the kind of, this is gold derangement syndrome, when all you think about is gold, and you think that the rest of the world thinks about gold, that the rest of the world is thinking about a reset and backing the yuan with gold. If you actually thought about why China would never back the yuan with gold, you'd realize it's a ridiculous concept, and the only reason you want to believe it is you think China is going to crush the dollar, and when the dollar goes down, my gold goes higher. Once you get into the mind, I think it's gold or silver derangement syndrome. You start to think about these things, and that's when you start to make errors in judgment. That's when you sell your house and you buy gold, or you sell your kids and you buy silver, whatever it is, and you start to believe these things. That's why my mug example should really wake you up, because you can say the same thing that they say about silver and gold to a certain extent about copper, about aluminum. Silver is so useful. Silver is so useful in our lives. We cannot live our life without it. It's the same with mugs. Just substitute some of this stuff that passes as like intelligent analysis, and JP Morgan has all this silver. Well, they have a lot. Maybe they have a lot of mugs too. That I don't know. I get frustrated listening to this, not because people are entitled to their opinions, but then everybody repeats them. Not only repeats them, believes them, and starts to conduct their affairs around these narratives that are very low probability. All right. See, if the monetary system resets, do you think it's possible? Anything is possible. Am I going to sell my house and buy gold and silver? No. I'd rather sell my house and go to Vegas and bet on red than do that. Maybe those controlling the central banks are buying gold through other means, off record. Yes, because what every country wants to do, because they know how important gold is, because it's as important to them as it is to you, that they're going to sneak around. They're going to go and buy. See, that's what people were saying to me last night was, well, the Treasury could have made a special deal with JP Morgan to mint silver eagles for them and to mint them at a price at spot. Why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense at all. First of all, they don't even mint the coins themselves. They get silver planchets from 3 outside vendors. Why are they going to make a deal with JP Morgan to mint silver eagles? And what is JP Morgan going to do with silver eagles? See, people don't think this stuff through. They hear somebody say something, and then everybody else in the alternative financial media says the same thing. Then it becomes part of the folklore. COMEX default, gold back yuan, silver shortage, reset, Sun Tzu, China to crush the dollar. Converting some is wise either way. Okay. I wonder how Venezuela real estate market is doing. Has it depreciated inversely to gold? I don't know. I don't follow the Venezuelan market. But you see, if you have anything of value, and there is truth in all this. I mean, fiat currencies can go to zero because they're inherently not based on anything. However, there's a very vested interest in the rest of the world, including all these central banks, not to let it happen, because they're all on a fiat currency system. All of them. And the idea that China, which is the biggest debt monster on the planet, wants to crush the dollar is ridiculous beyond belief, because China runs its economy on dollars. China just announced that, because of tariffs, we're going to have to loosen lending again, and we're going to have to start creating some more infrastructure that they don't need. So they're just going to borrow money against the yuan. Well, they're borrowing it from themselves. Like, that's okay. And they're just going to print up yuan and put people to work. They all have an interest in buying each other's debt, keeping the fiat currency system alive. None of them have nearly enough gold. There's just not. You'd have to reprice gold $30,000, $40,000 an ounce. Oh, sure, they're just going to do that. They're not just going to do that. It's not going to be a reset. And then they're going to say, okay, gold is now $40,000. And all the people that bought gold, here's your gift. From what people seem to be saying, yes, I'm not certain. Yeah, the thing is, you got to get outside of the bubble. You can't just listen to alternative financial media, because once you hear it one place, you can go to 12 other alternative financial media sites. They're all going to be saying the same thing. They're all talking about the gold back yuan. Then it was the gold triangle. Everything was a game changer. And then you never hear boo from them after it doesn't turn out to be a story. Same with imminent COMEX default. Then it doesn't happen. So they don't mention it again for a few years. Then they bring the story back again. You got to remember, people are selling newsletters. They're selling metals. And you're believing it. And then you're acting in their service by not only believing it, repeating it, insisting it's true, and telling everyone you know. You'll see, you'll see, you'll see. I hear that all the time. All right. Lewis does not think the system is going to reset. I'm not saying it won't reset. What I'm saying is there's no certainty it's going to reset. There's no certainty if it does reset that it's going to involve gold. There's no certainty if it resets it's going to have SDRs. And maybe it won't reset. There's so many things that can happen other than one big global reset. You can have what's happening right now evolve. You can have trading in local currencies. You can have gold trade notes over here, but not over here. You can have a continued use of the dollar as a reserve currency. Adding into that the euro as a reserve currency. There doesn't have to be one major reset. All right, then we had the period where we had no sound, no sound. Gibbs says, I was silenced or speaking out against game changers. Do you suppose he's just going on and on without checking the chat? Yes, Drunk. That's what I was doing, unfortunately. Yeah, don't know about a reset, says Wellness, so what exactly would entail seems plausible or at least semi-reasonable. That's the point. That's a very good point. Yeah, all of this stuff, they're not harebrained ideas. What's harebrained about it is the insistence that they're true, that they're inevitable. Mathematical certainty. No, it's not. Nothing is a mathematical certainty other than 2 + 2 = gold. All right. Either way, having some metal seems prudent if not necessary. Yeah, and you know, they've always said, even before this, the debt got out of hand 30, 40 years ago, they always said have 10% of your wealth in gold. What's funny is today, no one has 10% of their wealth in gold. Everyone has stocks. They might have a SLV GLD, but they don't have 10% of their wealth in gold. All right, let's see what else we got here. I'm back. Please recap. Covering the difference of confiscation, says Wellness. Harm an agency largely buying gold jewelry is saving money. I'm quite sure. That's true. Yes, and they buy high-quality jewelry. They don't buy 10-karat gold. They buy the 22, 24-karat stuff. And it does serve a dual purpose. Not necessarily as money, but as store of wealth. They're not going to trade it in the same way you might use a gold coin. And most of the gold and silver that's sold overseas is not in the form of bullion, not stackers the way they are in America. And they're not buying it for the collapse. See, that's an American thing. They're buying it over there because they're wealthy and they can buy it and they want it, and it's a status symbol. Bitcoin and gold are only strong money, good saving, in my opinion. Well, it could be. Kareem R. Landon Burns Johnson, stop the silver content. My grandmother hates him. She's 87. He was the worst president next to Bush Jr. Oh, Lyndon Baines Johnson. Yeah. He actually created today's welfare warfare state. I mean, the Vietnam War is a huge undertaking. 500,000 soldiers sent overseas. At the same time, he's introducing the Great Society with introducing Medicare, Medicaid, and trying to land a man on the moon. Total amount of wasted money there, that's for sure. All right. Let's see what other comments we got. I want to get to them all. Right. All right. Wellness, sure, everything is, but most things are terrible for saving, liquidating. Wellness 81 in metals could sure go up much more than other things at various times. Wellness, got to have a mug full of gold on hand. See, that's where you can't go wrong with the mug. It can hold gold, and so we're up to 15 reasons, and people keep sending me more. Mugs are definitely a gotta-have item for preppers and normies alike. Have I ever listened to Lynette Zhang? I try not to. Kareem, gotta buy a mug. Please do. I'm shipping them out tomorrow. Database DNA. On the topic of inflation, gas seems really high despite oil trading in a range. Shouldn't the oil-gas ratio be fairly stable? Well, gas is also a function, if you tell me where you are, I mean, it's also a function of what tax they slap on it. There's a refinery cost, so there's not a direct, there is definitely a correlation between oil and gas, but it depends on where you are, too. Kareem, Smaulgld is the game changer. Fair point, but we do have a ridiculously cancer system that needs some kind of overhaul. Says who? Who? You see, this is again, you have to use logic. The rationale that people use for the reset is, and then people will demand that they put gold in the system to give it confidence, because if there is not gold in the system, people will not have confidence in the system, and that is why I am sure that gold is going to 10,000 and that gold will be part of the system. Now think about that. The average person doesn't know gold from a hole in the wall. They don't know what it is. They don't know what's so they don't have a connection. They don't understand the Bretton Woods agreements of these people that tout this stuff. They read the books on the Bretton Woods agreements, and they read like the early days of when Nixon went off. This is ancient history. People aren't steeped in this. They never held a silver coin in their hand. The only gold they've ever seen is in someone's teeth or a ring. They don't think that that's going to give it confidence. And if you need proof of that, you don't have to go any further back than 2008. There were not people in the streets carrying placards when the system collapsed saying we need gold. We need silver. No one was saying that. We're even further away from that now. At least there were some older people back then that remember when we had a gold standard and remember when there was silver in the currency. Today's people that are running this stuff, they grew up on digital stuff. They grew up on Keynesian economics. They have no connection to gold. The only people that think about gold this way are people who sell you gold or sell you gold subscriptions. That's unfortunate. I'm not saying they're wrong, that gold isn't an anchor and that the gold standard didn't work. Of course it did. But no one is in a position of power that's saying anything remotely. If you read the Fed speeches, just go through them, do word searches. They don't mention gold at all. The only time they mention gold was when Ron Paul used to ask and badger Ben Bernanke about it. Otherwise, they don't talk about it. So it's not like, oh, well, this is what's going to happen. COMEX is closer to an ETF than a physical exchange. Well, that's a good point. Okay, let's see. They say Deutsche Bank could be another Lehman Brothers. Yeah, but they've been saying that for the longest time. And you have to remember, banks, if you look at bank financial statements, even if you're an accountant or a financial wizard, you can't tell what's going on there. Well, people, they try to sound like they know what's going on. Deutsche Bank has billions of dollars of derivatives. They don't know what derivatives they have. They're not publicly traded. They don't know what the credit default provisions are. They don't know the notional. They don't even know that. They don't know anything. They just like to use the word derivative, and that somehow means something. And you're like, well, he said Deutsche Bank's going to collapse because of derivatives. Well, he knows more than I do, so I guess Deutsche Bank's going to collapse. I better go out and read his newsletter and buy gold. That's basically what the way your mind works. You hear this stuff, it sounds reasonable, and you're like, okay, so tell me more. And then they tell you COMEX is going to default. And if you keep subscribing, they'll tell you when. And then when it doesn't happen, they got you on some other story that something's going to collapse. And you better stay tuned because you don't want to miss out on this valuable information about the collapse or the reset or... Everything is an industry. Right now, you got to remember, I'm selling mugs. So just keep that in mind. I am definitely selling mugs. I'm telling you I'm selling mugs. The only reason I'm talking about any of this stuff is to sell mugs. Gold is money. Everything else is credit. Well, actually, that wasn't the statement. I think I had read at the beginning. You see that people repeat that. Gold is money, period. I am buying gold because gold is money. Gold is real money. Gold, the title of this episode is Gold is Jewelry, everything else is just trinkets. No, what J.P. Morgan said in his 33 epigrams was money is gold and nothing else. He didn't say gold is money, everything else is credit. But that sounds nice to say that, and it gets you going, and it gets you to buy gold, and it gets you to subscribe, and it gets you to think, this guy's smart. He told me that quote. All right. Why do you think China and Russia are hoarding so much gold? Well, we talked about this. Russia has gold mines. Russia's kicked out of the SWIFT system. Russia has a crappy ruble. Why wouldn't they buy gold? What else are they going to do with their proceeds? Going to buy yuan with it? I mean, they don't have a lot of trade with the U.S., so they don't need to have dollars. They have trade with the rest of the world, so they need dollars for that. But, I mean, gold is as good as anything else to buy. I mean, it's smarter than what the Swiss National Bank does, which is buy Facebook and Twitter and Tesla stock. But they overstate this. Central banks are buying gold hand over fist. It's well overstated. 366 tons out of 3,000 ton gold demand a year, and 224 tons are bought by Russia from its own mines. You gotta look at the numbers instead of just listening to this. Russia and China are buying gold hand over fist. Yeah, and I say the same thing about mugs. I guarantee you, Russians and Chinese are buying mugs hand over fist. Why are they buying so many mugs? What do they know that you don't know? I heard that on a commercial today. Actually, that commercial had a footnote and had a Smaulgld blog post in it. So I guess I'm contributing to their marketing. It was about, I think it was up JP Morgan and HSBC control gold and silver. Don't you see that you can say this about anything? Why are Russia and China buying so many mugs? Because they are. I guarantee you they're buying so many mugs. You should be buying mugs too. Be like the Chinese. Be like the Russians. All right. Database would be more impressed with a gold parade than some of these ridiculous military parades country puts on. Yeah, I agree. That would be fun. Have a gold parade, but it would be meaningless. Just saying it's a possibility that not all central bank related purchases are publishes. That's all the statement meant. No, you're right. Sure. But so what? I'm sure they do a lot of stuff. I'm sure they hide basically half the things that they do. But it doesn't give gold any more special allure. See, what... It's only when you attach significance to things that may or may not happen that they become significant. So if you believe, oh, maybe because of Sun Tzu, China is buying more gold than they say they have. Well, so what? I don't know that that is something that should make you excited that you're not sure of something, but it could be because of Sun Tzu that China does something with gold that you're not sure about, and therefore you should subscribe to a newsletter because they seem to know what they're talking about, and maybe you should buy gold because China might have more gold than they say they have. If somebody told me that story, I'd say, okay, why does that make me want to run out and buy gold? See, there's reasons to buy gold and there's reason to buy silver, but the people that pump this stuff, they don't give you the real reasons. They give you the pump stories. It's hard to compare mugs to precious metals. I just did. Mugs are precious. They're not metal, but they're precious. People just don't understand mugs. Annabelle, there is some chatter that President Trump plans to abolish the Fed. The president can't abolish the Fed. The Fed was created by an act of Congress. It's for the Federal Reserve Act. He can't abolish the Fed. Is there anything in your estimation? No. If this happened, would it mean to the wage of there's no movement to end the Fed. There was Ron Paul, he wrote a book. A few 100,000 people read it, and that was it. The average person doesn't understand the Fed, doesn't know what the Fed does. And the problem with getting rid of the Fed, unless you want to go to a totally laissez-faire economy, which nobody in this country, well, not nobody, I mean, I'd like to give it a whirl, but they're not just going to get rid of the Federal Reserve. The best you can hope for is they can reduce the powers of the Fed, take away their ability to, they should just be a bank of last resort. They shouldn't be in charge of full employment and all this other nonsense. But all central banks have these massive powers. How are you going to take power away from them? Database DNA. Act now, the Chinese are buying up all the mugs. Yeah, I'm telling you. I'm a mug pumper. Get your mugs now. But Jim Willie the voice. Yes, Rob Gibbs. Annabelle, I'm planning to buy a mug in the next few days because I find them very stylish. See? You see the thing about, you have to like what you buy. If you're just stacking stuff in your basement, what fun is that? I mean, you want something that looks good and is useful. And the Smaulgld mugs are very, very useful. You can put things in your mug. You can drink coffee from a mug. Chrono Trigger Fan is here. It's possible that central banks are run by aliens too. Yes, but speculating about things we have no evidence for is a waste of time. Well, it is a waste of time, and it's a waste of your money to pay people to listen to them speculate about this stuff. Kareem, what do you believe is true value at its purest form? You could say food, shelter, water. Are you saying I only have 3 choices? Or are you asking which one is fairly valued at the time? So, your number one thing that you can't live without with the longest period of time, the shortest period of time, is water. Shelter, and you can get by without food for, people fast for a week or 2. I mean, you can get away with it, but those 3 things you need. If there ever was a freezing up of the credit system like the doomsday scenario they have, what are you going to do with gold and silver? You can't eat it, and you're not going to barter with it either. If someone has a bunch of foodstuffs and you don't have any, and you have, I don't know, a roll of Silver Eagles and some junk silver, I wouldn't give you my food for that. What am I going to do with it? I mean, if there really is a scenario where if credit systems have frozen up, which means that goods and services are not going to travel for a while, which I'm not sure that it could happen. But what am I going to do with gold and silver at that point? See, gold and silver are useful in a quasi breakdown, not in a total breakdown. In a total breakdown, you need your guns and your food and your shelter. You don't need silver. You don't need gold for sure. But you see, you shouldn't buy gold and silver for a collapse. That never made any sense to me. And you shouldn't hope for it. Dollar collapse and watch videos about the day the dollar died in China. That's... Oh, my goodness. All right, database DNA. If Bitcoin can go to, let's see, up to 20,000, repricing gold 30,000 doesn't be farm effects. No, the reason Bitcoin can go to 20,000 is because the size of that market is so small. There's only like 15 million coins available right now, and there's only like another 4 or 5 left, and they've lost like 3 or 4 million of them. That goes up because it's a rinky-dink market, and it just takes a little bit of pumping and a very small amount of money, and it can go up. Gold to be repriced. See, Bitcoin wasn't repriced to 20,000; it just went there. But when Bitcoin was $20,000, the market cap was only $500 billion to $600 billion. That's nothing. For gold to go to 30,000, you're talking about trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. So it can't. I mean, it can, but it's not the same thing. Like, well, if Bitcoin goes to 20,000, then gold can go to 30. No, wrong goes star. Their market sizes are so different. Hubzilla, I'm going to buy a mug because I'm absolutely convinced it will make my coffee taste better. If you think it does, it's worth it. That's it. I'm buying a mug, says Drunk Octopus. You can't go wrong. What can happen? The worst thing that can happen is you hate your mug and you pay $23 for it, but then you know what you get to do? You get to go outside and smash it. And that's worth 23 bucks. Otherwise, you have a mug for life, and it reminds you to tune in every night at 8 o'clock to this podcast and watch me fumble through technology and not stay on point or even being able to hear me. But I do appreciate your patience. All right, let's see what else is here. Annabelle, great idea to hoard silver and gold jewelry. Yep. Annabelle, welfare warfare state. That's an intriguing phrase I've not heard of. I did not invent the welfare warfare state phrase. That is, though, what it is. That's somewhat of the bread and circuses from Roman times. There's also another way of calling it. They call it buns and butter. Guns and butter. Guns being the war and butter being the welfare. once I get my mug and I have to put some gold in it. Absolutely. You take pictures of it. You know, I'll post them, and I would love to hear you and let Zhang duke it out. There's no point. No, what debate? I mean, I once responded to this. You can look it up. I remember the first time I heard it, she was talking about how it's funny. Chrono Trigger Man remembers this. Was that they were going to monetize China with the help of the IMF. Was going to monetize tea, and they were going to issue a SDR. I can't even explain it because it's too far-fetched and too silly. An SDR, and they weren't going to allow Americans to buy into it. And the company is called AC Chain. And you see, there's a guy, and he's running through a pyramid, and that means it's Illuminati. And that's what these elites are trying to do. They're trying to digitize assets using the IMF in a global currency. I'm sorry, I can't listen to that nonsense. There's so much there to just break apart and say it's ridiculous, and it is. So I'm not going to get into a debate. There's nothing to debate. First of all, you can't debate about what's going to happen. That's just one person paints a fantastical prediction. The other person argues that that can't happen. You can't prove any of that stuff. So there's no debate to be had. All right. No, I can't make that happen. I'm not interested in having that happen. Zany Zhang versus the Italian Stallion. How you doing, Chrono Trigger fan? I said, listen over here. You don't know what you're talking about, all right? Now, just because most people are unaware what real money is doesn't change what real money is. Now, you're getting really philosophical there, Silver Slave. Because do you know what money is? Who says you know? I mean, what do you know? What do I know? You a wino? Forget about it. I put all my cash in the AC Chain, thinking it would enslave the world through tea. I should have bought a mug to hold real tea. Uh-oh, Silver Slave. Oh, I see. He's cussing and swearing. I can't show it cussing and swearing, Silver Slave. Annabelle, Bretton Woods sounded very picturesque. Yes, you know, I actually went to Bretton Woods before I knew it was Bretton Woods. It was back in college. I took a very nice picture of it, and I have it on. If you Google why Saudi Arabia matters, something like that or another, Smaulgld, I took a picture of Bretton Woods. It looks like the Swiss Alps, but it's in New Hampshire. Horses are... Oh, yes. You see, Chrono Trigger fan is putting the statement that I used to do. When people say money has been gold for 5,000 years. Money will always be gold. Gold is money, period. Well, that's what they used to say about horses. Horses are transportation. Horses have been transportation for 5,000 years, period. Well, today, horses, you can ride a horse as transportation. But they're no longer the primary means of transportation. Just like gold was money. Gold is money for 5,000 years. Gold is real money. Well, gold is no longer used as a currency. First time I said that, some people lost their minds. Lois Camerasano says gold isn't money. What the hell's wrong with him? Was he a moron? Well, no, if you look at your definition of money, one of the things they talk about is it's used as a medium of exchange. Who do you know that uses gold as a medium of exchange? So what I said was gold could be money, certainly was money, but I don't think it's money today. I think it's a store of value. I think it's an asset. Just like I don't think horses are a primary means of transportation anymore. Horses are money, period. Yes, there is no currency or money. Choose what you want to save in. Annabelle has finally got it sussed, as they say in England. She's saying, mugs are real money. That's right, mate. Mugs are real money. Can't do anything without money. You got to have a mug. And mugs are terrific barter items, I'm telling you. See, in my example, when somebody has food and you have a mug, you could probably exchange your mug for food because they need to put their food in there. If they haven't properly prepped with mugs, they're going to be hosed. There are horses or cars. Choose what you want to ride on. And that's another point I like to make. People will always choose the faster invention. People will use digital money, credit cards, wire transfers instead of lugging gold around. It may not be as good. People will take a car instead of a horse. Why? It's faster. A car is more dangerous. It pollutes. Doesn't matter. People will choose the faster option. Since when is any investment mutually exclusive? It's a fallacious argument completely divorced from your original thesis. Or you guys can debate that. Maybe you can get Lynette Zhang involved in this whole debate. Silver is a Ferrari. Ferraris don't go 50 to 15 in 5 years, but 0 in 60 seconds. Yeah, this idea, this tying it, you know, when you start saying gold is money, period. Silver is money, period. Well, mugs are money, period. All right? Mugs are money. Because I say so, I'm going to say it a lot, and I'm just going to keep saying it, and it's money, period. You can exchange mugs. People want mugs. They have intrinsic value. Mugs are money, period. They're real money. Mugs can't go to zero. They're money, period. Everyone needs a mug, period. Got it, Mugsy? All right. Sorry, silver is not an investment, it is money. No, silver is an asset. It's not money. It's not money. I don't know how it's money. How is it money? It's got... my necklace is money. My silver spoon is money. How is it money? It's only money if you can use it as a medium of exchange. Theoretically, it's money, but no one uses it. Oh, here we go. The U.S. dollar has lost 95% of its value. The horse is dying soon. All right. You think currency is better than silver? If you want to buy something, it is. And why do people stack silver? Because they think they're going to make fiat profit. This nonsense. Measure your wealth in silver in ounces. Even as you can buy less and less with it over the last 10 years, but that's all right. You have more ounces. No, it's not all right. Measure your wealth in mugs. The more mugs you have, the more stuff you can pour into them. Period. Whew. How to invest. Tell us. See, you don't get it, Drunk Octopus. I'm not here to tell you how to invest. I'm here to help you think. That's about it. I'm not even dealing with the full deck, so to speak, meaning I don't have everything figured out. But what I think I do is I try to think things through. I don't like to listen to somebody telling me silver is the most undervalued asset on the planet. Silver and gold are money, period. I'm not definitive about anything other than mugs. All right. What is this? The U.S. dollar is basically on life support. No, it's not. See, that's another thing. That's the whole, oh, the dollar is toilet paper. No, it's not. That is the most used currency in the world by far. The idea that the Chinese yuan is going to crush the dollar. Everyone uses dollar. If you think the dollar's on life support, just send it all to me. I will take it. I will spend it. I'll invest it. I may even buy silver with it, but it is not on life support. The only thing that you could possibly say is on life support is the entire fiat currency system. But the dollar is the strongest fiat currency in the whole shooting match, bar none. Not the euro, not the yen. They all are debt monsters. The idea that you focus on the dollar, and the dollar's days are numbered, end of dollar hegemony, that's all a bunch of nonsense. Yeah, it's been on life support since the early 70s. Yeah, Ron Paul, dollar collapse since 1981. End of dollar hegemony. Get to your bunkers. Annabelle, thank you for your insight. I don't know if it's insight. It's a bit of a rant. Kareem, traders I know say trading stocks, equities, and lesser cryptos are smart and gold bugs are idiots. No, you see, gold bugs aren't idiots. They're not. I like gold. I like silver. What's idiotic is the insistence on dogma about gold and silver. This gold is money, period. Silver is so useful. Therefore, they are finding more reasons to use it every day. And therefore, it is the most useful thing in the world, and we can't lead our lives without it. You can say that about mugs. Oh, how can you say that? Silver is... Well, I can. Mugs are useful. Full stop. Something that can't go on forever won't. That's another one of these things. How about it doesn't matter until it does? See, these are things that these people say, and you just parrot them and repeat them. And they say the same thing, and the only people getting rich off are the people saying them, not the people listening to them. You're still sending them money for subscriptions and buying whatever they're selling. Period. What is the silver to gold ratio right now? 79.15 to 1. Chrono Trigger fan. Nothing goes on forever, but some things go on far longer than you could ever imagine. Right. The other thing is unsustainable. Your life is unsustainable. You're not going to live to 130 years old. You're not even going to live to 120. The dollar is going to collapse one day. Of course it is. Everything ends. Everything has a lifespan. That's the whole concept of Zero Hedge's whole website. We all use their currency. We have to, but wise to save in silver at this point. Yes, it's been so wise. The reason, what value is, and that's what the people who keep touting silver and gold as being, like somehow they know something that everyone else doesn't. The whole purpose of a value-based system is not the value that you ascribe to it, because that's why you would like your own kids' drawings, but no one's going to pay $18 million for it, is the value that everybody else ascribes to things, because that's the market that you have to exist in. You can't go to somebody and say, I have money, I have real wealth in my pocket, I have a silver quarter, and it should be worth $60 an ounce in fiat, but it's not. It is only worth $15. So therefore, you have to give me $60 worth of value. And they're going to laugh at you. You don't determine what value is. You may think silver is real value and gold is money, period. But if no one else thinks it, it doesn't matter. You're not right. And that's what the people say. Well, I was righter than everybody else was, and when the market figures out that I'm right, then, then gold will go higher. That's a moronic thing to say. That's like saying when the world recognizes my genius, that my podcasts will have 500 million views, and I'll sell 8 million mugs a year. You'll see. You'll see. Mugs are money. Period. All right. Database. You might not exchange food for gold, silver, but I would, and that's why I keep both on hand, maybe only one, but I got it. Well, it all depends. How much food is available, how much gold you have, how much silver. Yes, if you're in a position where you already are wealthy, meaning you have all of your gold, silver, bullets, everything, you have everything, sure, you'll give up some of your stuff to get more wealth for the future, but it all depends. All right. High fructose corn syrup. Buying silver at 15, a good semi-numismatic coin. I've been flipping those. I want to collect. All right. Chrono Trigger fan. Listen to all, follow none, says Chris Dwayne. Yes, he's discovered the way of life. Chrono Trigger fan. Chi Woo, Chi Wong. That's the South Korean thing. Series out of the Korean Mint. Would have been great for flipping. Yes, Chrono Trigger fan. I miss those. See, here's the thing you got to realize about tangible items. Baby boomers love tangible items. They like coins, they like baseball cards, they like LPs, they like CDs, they like antique furniture, they like stuff. They have storage units full of it. Millennials and younger, they measure their wealth in digital assets. They don't have CDs. They don't have LPs. They don't have DVDs. So they look at money as something that's, yeah, here's my phone. I want to buy something. You try to stuff their pockets with coins. They don't want them. What am I going to do with this? They're going to turn them in and get digital assets. Okay. Gold is jewelry and nothing else. Gold is jewelry, period. Everything else is just trinkets. Do you think these countries that are accumulating gold... What country is accumulating gold? Okay, this is fantasy. They're going to finally gang up on the central banks and take over their own financial control. Wrongo start. They're part of the whole conspiracy. They're all in on it. They're not like these rogue states are going to buy... This is... This is the fantasy that they sell you. The BRICS have had it, and they're going to go on a gold standard, and then it's going to be game over for the dollar, and it'll be a big game changer, and it'll be end dollar hegemony, and gold will be 50,000, and you're going to own a city block because you got a roll of silver eagles. They're selling you a fantasy. These countries aren't thinking they're going to gang up and end this dollar hegemony. There's a BRICS summit going on right now, and the main yes, they're going to show us South Africa's had it. They can't even bring water into their own cities. They're gonna end dollar hegemony. And even if they did, look, if they want to trade amongst themselves and they want to accept Brazilian real and the South African rand, let them have at it. What difference does it make? That doesn't end dollar hegemony. I don't even see why that even matters. If they want to trade amongst themselves, if Russia wants to give China a gold trade note to get some refrigerators, so they do that. They don't all have to be on the SWIFT system. The reason they don't do it is because they realize they don't trust each other, because they all have flaws in their own economies. People think that, oh, China's got it going on because they have gold. China is a massive debt Ponzi scheme. No one wants the yuan. If countries wanted to break away from the dollar, all they'd have to do is say, okay, we're just going to go and buy yuan-denominated assets. They'd be out of their mind to do that, and they don't do that. The yuan has gained no traction as an international currency over the last 5 years. Central banks, it's like 1.3% of their reserves. They have it just to be nice to China. They don't want it. No one wants the Russian ruble, the Brazilian real. These are the BRICS. South African rand. Well, that's something you want to invest in. The BRICS have had it. They're going to end dollar hegemony. Unbelievable. You can talk down silver pumpers, but I don't think you're paying. No, I am painting an accurate picture of Ron Paul. Ron Paul has been predicting death of the dollar since 1981. I'm not saying that Ron Paul doesn't have sound views, that Ron Paul doesn't understand that the Fed is not necessarily the best thing for society, but he's wrong when they make these predictions. When they talk about these predictions, oh, no, you got to have gold right now. You can't be right. You cannot be considered correct in your analysis for 40 years predicting the end of the dollar. He's wrong. Absolutely wrong. You cannot say the dollar's going to collapse for 40 years. Of course something's going to collapse. I can predict that the Empire State Building is going to collapse one day. It will. I can repeat it every year till I die, and it won't happen, but it'll collapse one day. It's not a cut on Ron Paul. It's a cut on specifically people predicting stuff, insisting that they're right, and they're, well, he's not wrong, he's just early. Well, timing is everything. Timing is everything in life. So for somebody to tell you, oh, he's not really wrong, he's just 3 centuries early. No, he's wrong. For what they say, all intents and purposes, he's wrong. If you try to pay for your groceries with a silver spoon, the transaction may not just... It won't. It's not money. Silver is not a precious metal. It's a semi-precious metal. No, actually, it's considered a precious metal. The precious metals are, I think, rhodium, platinum, palladium, silver, gold. I think that's it. Platinum, palladium, silver, gold, and rhodium. Seems foolish, precisely. Baby Boomer said baseball cards, millennials got digital rewards, so cash would probably easy to put... Yes, that's right, Rob. That's absolutely right. Gold is jewelry. Roth, there we go. Rothschild. How about the Illuminati? It's just a slow decline of your purchasing power. Most people don't... See, when you say most people don't notice inflation, that's right. That's what they call the insidious theft of inflation. But silver is not a tool to protect your purchasing power. It's not. It hasn't been. You could say that about gold. Do a chart of, over 100 years. Well, we're not talking 100 years. In your lifetime, silver has been the worst thing to preserve your wealth the last 10 years. Has. Any other asset. If you had mugs, you'd be better off. If you bought a carton of mugs 10 years ago, they're worth the same, maybe more now. If you bought gold 10 years ago, it's worth more now. Gold was $800 10 years ago. You know what silver was 10 years ago? $15. Still $15. How's that retaining your purchasing power? I don't get it. It's like you bought a car and it depreciated. Well, silver's money. Silver's money. That's it. Rothschilds, Illuminati. Dollars collapse. Yep. Ron Paul is always right. Rothschilds, Illuminati. All right, I gotta get going here. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and talk to you tomorrow night. Thanks a lot.